The giant serpent that we see from this mural is actually first mentioned in chapter 129 and Jimbei is actually first mentioned in chapter 69. So here are 10 such facts that you never knew. In chapter 965, Buggy told Shanks that Black Bear never slept in his life, but it is not the first time that we know something like this. Way back in chapter 134, in Rum Island, when Luffy was speaking with Sanji, he tells him about how people living in snow islands never sleep and if they sleep, they might die. It was such a minute detail that many people missed during the course of the arc. Staying in Rum Island, in chapter 154, when Dalton was speaking to Dr. Kureha, she corrects him when he mispronounced Goldie Roger and also mentions Will of D. It was the first time that Will of D is mentioned in One Piece, and I think she might know something about it. In chapter 506, back in Sabodia Archipelago, when the Straw Hats met Rayleigh, he told them that he was saved by HAKI 20 years ago. Although we know nothing about what happened there or how he was saved, it is still one of the interesting facts to say the least. Both Skypiea and Dressrosa have some interesting similarities. Birdcage was first introduced in Skypiea. Back then it was not a big deal, but in Dressrosa it was one of the important concepts. But one of the most interesting similarities is that Nolan was there in both Skypiea and Dressrosa. Not only as a pirate, he was seen to be a hero to both Shandians and Tontatares. Nolan being one of the important persons in both these islands is one of the interesting things to say the least. Back in chapter 69, when Yosaku was speaking to Luffy and Sanji, he mentions Jinbei as the person who releases Arlong into the seas. It is crazy to think about how early it was when we first get to know about Jinbei. And it is also the reason as to why Sanji was angry with Jinbei back in Fishman Island as he remembered what Yosaku told him about Jinbei. Staying in chapter 69, it was also the first time that we get to know about 7 warlords of the sea. Jinbei and Mihawk being 2 of those warlords was also revealed in the same chapter. The palace in Alabasta is said to be 4000 years old and it is one of the oldest things that we know in One Piece world alongside Adam Tree which is said to be 3000 years old and the Tree of Knowledge in Ohara which is said to be 5000 years old. And in one of my videos, I talked about how White Century is deeply connected to Alabasta but in an ironic way. Make sure to check it out. Back in chapter 98, where Luffy was captured by Buggy, we get to see this character which I personally think is Sabo. Just look at the hat and the clothing, it is a lot similar to Sabo. And the fact that Dragon being there in Lockdown adds to the theory. What do you think? Comment below. Back in chapter 154, we were told that Ace visited Drum Island and when he was there, it didn't snow at all. When I first heard this, I thought, is it because of his devil fruit abilities or is this the result of Ace being close to awakening his devil fruit? What do you think? Comment below. The giant serpent from this mural is actually first mentioned way back in chapter 129 when the Straw Hats left a little garden. In this panel we see Dorian Broggy talking about a serpent that is soaked in blood. It is crazy to think about how many of us didn't really notice these lines, and I personally think that the giant serpent is the red line that we know today. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching.